Divine proportion is a type of guide that has been used since ancient times. It creates golden rectangles and golden spirals based on the golden ratio, which can be found in architecture, sculpture, art, math, music, and even natural forms like plants and animals.
I can control these guides with the Divine Proportion panel, which is docked in my workspace, but you can also find it under the Window menu, Composition Panels, Divine Proportion. I'll disable the spiral and axis lines, and I'll reduce the levels to 1. I'll also make the size a bit smaller so we can see the edges. The golden rectangle is divided in two, with a square on one side and a rectangle on the other. If you add or remove a square, you are left with another golden rectangle. If I increase the levels, you can see that I can subdivide this guide infinitely. I'm not going to go into detail about the mathematics behind divine proportion, but I will do my best to summarize how you can use it in your art. These guides can be used to keep objects in proportion or to place points of interest. Objects can exist within these golden rectangles or along their alignments. If I hide these guides and then show my head and divine proportion layers, you can see the proportions of the human face follow the golden ratio. There are dozens of ways to use golden rectangles to express the features of a face. These are just a few of the alignments for example's sake. I'll hide my example guides and show the divine proportion tool guides. To reposition the guides, you can select the divine proportion tool from the toolbox. This will allow you to position the guides anywhere on the canvas. You can scale the guides larger or smaller and change the angle and orientation. I'll resize them to fit between the eyes and the chin. You can see that the mouth and nose are aligned with the guides, depending on which orientation I choose from the Divine Proportion panel. Here's an example of how to use some of the other Divine Proportion guides. If I enable the spiral and axis lines, I get a Fibonacci Spiral, which is another mode that can be used for composition. I'll use it to guide the curvature of the head. You can change the color and opacity of the various guidelines, and you can determine how many levels of subdivision are present. Just like the layout grid, Divine Proportion can only be saved with a Painter RIF file format. You can also save presets if you like by clicking the plus button. I'll disable Divine Proportion by unchecking the box.